Who are the criminals that made decisions that were so bad they might as well have turned themselves in? Let's find out, starting with number 6, the Woo Gang. A group of criminals scammed the government and then made a rap video about it. The Woo Gang, whose name sometimes stands for We On Our Own, was associated with the late rapper Pop Smoke, who actually released a single, The Woo, featuring 50 Cent and Roddy Ricch, referencing the gang. The Woo Gang apparently doesn't usually leave New York City, which is where their gang is based. So detectives were very surprised when members of the gang began posting pictures that placed them not only outside New York, but on the West Coast. Members of the gang posted pictures of themselves in expensive houses with amazing views, but the detectives quickly realized that the pictures had been taken in Florida and California. So they got to thinking. They generally never leave New York, but now they didn't just leave, but they also left New York living large. The detectives figured out that the gang must have profited from some huge score, and they began to investigate. The first step was to trace the Airbnb the gang members stayed in. Detectives were able to get the exact homes the gang members were posting from and were able to comb through their bank records. That's when they discovered that members of the gang had been involved in a scheme to defraud the government by filing for COVID unemployment benefits using false names. Following that lead, the NYPD teamed up with the Inspector General's Office of the U.S. and the Department of Labor to find out the specifics of the scam. They discovered that 8 members of the Woo Gang had used more than 800 false identities to file nearly 1,000 unemployment claims. They used these claims to get at least $4 million from the government. The money could have been even more, as the gang made claims that totaled over $20 million. The police also discovered that the gang members had bragged about their crimes in a music video they'd made around the same period. The song's lyrics included lines about unemployment making them work harder, but they meant defrauding, and unemployment referred to the COVID-19 employment benefit scheme. This was a clear reference to the money that the gang had got from defrauding the government. The police investigation also discovered Instagram posts where members of the gang posed with a Lamborghini and a Mercedes Maybach. They also found pictures of members of the gang posing with large stacks of cash. The lines in their songs and the social media posts were evidence that the gang had gotten a huge injection of money around the period gang members started filing false unemployment claims. There's definitely ways to get away with this scam, but one way to guarantee to not get away with it is by posting the evidence on social media. But they just had to brag. Number 5, Crossbow Fashion. Darren Durant was caught stealing a crossbow by stuffing it down his pants. Because how else was he going to steal a crossbow? The entire episode was caught on camera, so it was difficult for Durant to argue that it didn't happen. In the video, the handle of the bow was visibly sticking out of his waistband as he made his getaway. Oddly, the theft was only discovered when store workers noticed that 2 of the crossbows in the store had been stolen. They checked the surveillance video and saw Durant stealing not just a bow, but also a pair of cutting tools, meaning his absurd attempt at hiding the crossbow actually worked. The video was shared online, and in it, Durant can be seen walking around with a crutch in one hand and the crossbow in the other, like you do. He rests the crutch against one of the shelves and put the huge bow in his pants. Durant barely conceals it, but it doesn't seem like he cares that much. Then he gets his crutch and limps away to freedom. It's funny, but the bow sells for over $1,000, so it's not like this was just some petty theft. The police got involved, and a few days later, Durant was caught in the parking lot of a Walgreens. When he saw the police coming, he tried to run, but he didn't get very far. Unsurprisingly, this wasn't the first time Durant got in trouble with the law. He'd gotten 2 prior felony theft convictions and may have continued his reign of poorly disguised robberies if he hadn't been caught. How much did the employees not care, though? He got out with the crossbow looking completely ridiculous in his pants, and no one noticed? Number 4, carjacking is a lifestyle. Anthony Jimmy Goddard stole a vehicle from a jail bond agent barely minutes after he was released from jail for stealing a vehicle. The car belonged to bondswoman Namia Cropper. Cropper had arrived at the jail for some business and parked her vehicle right outside in the parking lot. While she was inside, Goddard just got released. But instead of seeing freedom, he saw opportunity, hopped in Cropper's car, and drove off. The entire thing was caught on video too, because Goddard decided to steal the car from a parking lot that has a bunch of cameras, because it's a jail parking lot. So not only did Goddard steal a vehicle just after getting released on bail for stealing a vehicle, but he also did it in a place where they were almost guaranteed to notice. You're probably not too surprised to learn that Goddard has a pretty healthy rap sheet for someone that would steal a car right after getting released. He had been in and out of jail several times for stealing vehicles, and his latest heist was just his dumbest yet. While Goddard was yet to be caught at that moment, Namia Cropper knew he couldn't run forever. She said that she spoke to all the other jail bond businesses that she knew, and they all agreed to blacklist Goddard and not bond him out when he got caught again. So not only did Goddard steal a car immediately after he was released from jail for stealing another car, but he also stole a car from a jail bondswoman who's going to make sure he never gets bonded out of jail again. This crime is a Hall of Famer when it comes to dumb crimes for sure. And it's not like no one would know who he was by looking at the footage, where you see a video and you're like, okay, there's a dude and you can see his face, but who is he? The police already had all of his information because they literally just let him out. Really makes you wonder what his thought process was. Number 3, the NBA healthcare fraud. Ex-NBA player Terrence Williams has been sentenced to 10 years in prison for participating in a $5 million healthcare fraud against the NBA. The story of Terrence Williams is unusual because most athletes just move abroad when they can no longer compete in the NBA. But Terrence didn't play overseas. Instead, he decided to defraud the league. We've covered this story before, but we now have an update. In 2022, Terrence was busted for orchestrating a conspiracy where he convinced 18 former basketballers to defraud the NBA's health and welfare benefit plan. The plan provides extra coverage to former and retired players. He ran his scheme for 5 years and was in cahoots with doctors and a dentist to create medical documents. Those documents were then submitted to the NBA's health and welfare benefit plan office. The scheme was really poorly run though, and the documents had all sorts of spelling errors and inconsistencies. Terrence also recruited other players to take advantage of his scheme, and soon he and his gang had defrauded the NBA of over $5 million. As the coordinator of the scam, Terrence got around $340,000 in kickbacks. He also blackmailed some of his co-conspirators to make sure they stayed in line through the duration of the fraud. After getting himself arrested, Terrence went ahead to threaten his co-conspirators to not testify against him. This backfired spectacularly, as his texts were used to send him to jail pending his trial and sentencing. In the end, he was sentenced to 10 years in prison in order to pay $3.1 million in restitutions and forfeitures. The incredible thing about Terrence and his ex-baller co-conspirators was that some of them had very lucrative careers before leaving the NBA. With the other NBA players that were involved in the scheme, such as Sebastian Telfair and Tony Allen, the players had a combined earnings of over $360 million during their time in the NBA. This makes you wonder how many of them had gone broke to resort to this scamming. Number 2, deserving millions. Ramon Christopher Blanchett defrauded the IRS of almost $1 million by filing tax returns on taxes that he didn't pay. Ramon kept this gig up for 3 years and was only caught in the 3rd year after an extensive investigation by the IRS. Ramon's fraud is unusual because of how long it took the IRS to catch him and how dumb he was to continue filing for refunds after the IRS was onto him. Ramon had the genius idea to file fake documents filled with inaccurate information and use it to request almost $1 million in tax refunds. He claimed $18,000 in wage income, $47,000 in deductions, and an income tax withholding credit of $1 million. He also attached a W-2 from a Tampa nursing home that included forged information about his wages. Based on these lies, Ramon was able to request $1 million tax refund, and that $20,000 be applied to his estimated tax. Then Ramon got his refund and then deposited it in a SunTrust account. During his trial, his lawyer found this so incredible that he said he couldn't believe that the IRS even sent the check in the first place. Ramon made no attempts to hide the money whatsoever and treated it like the legal income he was entitled to. SunTrust found this behavior suspicious and held the check while they contacted the IRS to investigate the transaction. They also closed Ramon's account on suspicion of fraud. This should have told Ramon that the authorities may be on to him, but he didn't care. The next year, he filed the same forged documents with fictitious claims, and this time he said he was due a refund of $26,000. That same year, SunTrust sent him the check for his $980,000 that had been seized by the bank. For some reason, the IRS hadn't gotten back to the bank, so they decided to return the money to Ramon. So Ramon exchanged the check for a regular check and put it into his bank account at Grow Financial Credit Union. He claimed that the money came from his late father, who had left him an inheritance just to stop the bank from asking questions. He then used a part of the money to purchase a Lexus for $51,000. The next year, the IRS finally got around to investigating Ramon and seizing his Lexus and the money he had in his accounts. A month later, Ramon showed up at an IRS service center for an unrelated matter and was told that he was the subject of a $980,000 fraud investigation. But Ramon didn't care. He still tried the same IRS fraud scheme the very next year. He electronically filed his return showing $980,000 in income and a tax withholding credit of $800,000. He claimed that he was due a refund of $465,734. Again, this was while he was being investigated by the IRS. A normal criminal would just lay low, but not Ramon. He was fraud maxing. In the end, the IRS charged Ramon with theft of government funds, and he eventually pled guilty. Despite his guilty plea, Ramon still insisted he was innocent and said that the fault was from the IRS. He said he felt like he'd earned his $1 million tax refund through various jobs, and it was on the IRS to politely inform him that he'd been defrauding the state instead. So what jobs did Ramon work that made him think he deserved $1 million in tax refunds? Well, he worked as a nurse and was a part-time student at a community college. To be fair to him, he also has a commercial driver's license, works as a landscaper and a freelance DJ, and is training to become a licensed tattoo artist. Well, he was training to become one. Ramon ended up with a 34-month jail sentence. We get it, Ramon, though, because we feel like we deserve $1 million tax refunds as well. Maybe there's a Ramon Blanchett in all of us. If you're enjoying this video, be sure to stay tuned right here for our past release on some more of the dumbest decisions by the dumbest criminals. Number 1. GHerbo. The G stands for guilty. Rapper Herbert Wright, also known as GHerbo, had entered a guilty plea in connection with wire fraud conspiracy. GHerbo lived like a superstar on funds secured from stolen credit cards for about 18 months. He and a promoter named Antonio Strong shared stolen information they got from the dark web and used that information to steal thousands. GHerbo used the stolen credit card info to pay for chartered jet flights from Chicago to Austin and to pay for a 6-bedroom Jamaican villa that cost almost $15,000. So why was GHerbo needing to spend so much? Well, he was trying to make it as a rapper building his career. So he wanted to post pictures of himself in private jets and with exotic cars and incredible places, showing his lavish lifestyle to back up his lyrics. This actually makes sense to do since rappers have to keep up with a certain persona to keep their fans. It's kind of like fake money gurus posting pictures of themselves with rented cars and mansions and trying to get people to buy their courses. But at least rappers aren't actually scamming people. They're just selling a lifestyle. Kind of like acting a part in a movie. Anyways, since GHerbo didn't want to be on the hook for portraying a lifestyle he couldn't afford, he decided that stealing credit card info would be the best way to do it. GHerbo couldn't get away with this scam for long, since people tend to notice large transactions on credit cards. So when his promoter, Antonio Strong, was caught, he quickly ratted on GHerbo in an attempt to save himself. And when the police interviewed GHerbo, he said he didn't know Strong at all, despite clear evidence that both men had been working together for years. So he was charged with lying to law enforcement, to which he entered a not guilty plea. But he's now pled guilty to the credit card fraud allegations and lying to the police. GHerbo faces up to 25 years in prison as a result. He'll also forfeit around $140,000 as a part of his plea agreement. The dumb thing about the situation is that GHerbo's efforts with his music career were already paying off, so if he was just patient, he would have been able to afford the lifestyle anyway. And even though it makes total sense, it's kind of funny that there's a law against lying to the police. It feels like that's just an automatic charge that can be put on anyone. Do you know this man? No, sir. Well, here's a picture of you with him at his son's first birthday. Oh, that guy. These guys just can't help but just rat themselves out. Let's get right into just how dumb criminals can get. Number 4, let's rap about crime. 213 Jug God is a Texan rapper whose real name is Ladacien Riley. As a rapper, Riley makes hardcore songs about jugging. You would think that obviously jugging would mean that Riley is into doing things with jugs, playing the jug, putting stuff in jugs, hanging out with juggalos, collecting roughly 213 jugs, maybe even the occasional juggling show. Stuff like that can easily bring in up-and-comer loads of street cred in the hip-hop community. Actually, the jug in his name stands for jugging, and jugging is a street slang that means following unsuspecting victims and robbing them. 213, Jug God, was so into jugging that he actually wrote a jugging song called Make It Home, with lyrics bragging about stealing from ATMs. Really, being a god of jugging, what else was our man Riley going to do in his downtime? Not jug? Of course not. The lyrics of Make It Home describe robbing ATMs in different states, having thousands of dollars in the car, and trying to make it home before the police catch up. A deep and meaningful song that anyone could relate to. Most who heard the song might believe that 213 Jug God was just making up a story for his song, but it was actually his plan. The only difference was 213 Jug God didn't make it home. He was 213 Jug Got. 213 Jug God wasn't alone in his robbing escapades. He had 3 other juggers with him. His jug gang of 4, which included a juggette, jugged an ATM technician at the Bank of America. The crew approached the technician from behind as he serviced the machine, like a true jugger would, and forced him to hand over all the money in the machine, or there would be violence. Once they got the cash, the gang took the money and fled. 213 Jug God probably thought all about making it home, just like his song. However, things didn't quite pan out like that for our ragtag crew of jugging misfits. One of their getaway vehicles had been rented through Hertz, which allowed police to easily track their vehicle. In no time at all, police discovered the vehicle at a motel in Dixon, Tennessee. When police arrived, they decided to stake it out to see what kind of jugging activity they might find. And they found plenty. Police saw the gang load a Jeep up with cash, which was presumably jugged from the ATM, and then the gang checking out. After checking out, the suspects took off in different vehicles, but the police weren't about to let these juggers make it home. So they pursued the vehicles and quickly apprehended the jug buddies. Once all the jug friends were arrested, police discovered that this wasn't exactly 213 Jug God's first jugging rodeo. He was actually just out of prison on bond for an evading arrest charge. Police also discovered 213 Jug God's music and learned that he'd been bragging about jugging ATMs in his lyrics, so good luck with that not guilty plea. To add insult to injury, police made sure to mock 213 Jug God's ability to actually make it home in a Facebook post. Hopefully, 213 Jug God's church that worships him, he is a god after all, weren't too offended. Number 3, NBA player insurance scam. Former NBA player Terrence Williams was a first-round NBA pick out of Louisville who spent 6 seasons in the NBA with the Brooklyn Nets, Houston Rockets, Sacramento Kings, and Boston Celtics. Despite making a decent amount of money in the NBA, Williams wanted more. What he got was an indictment for leading a group of around 18 people to defraud the NBA through phony medical and dental insurance claims. Williams had recruited doctors in California and Washington, sent them false insurance claims, and got paid thousands of dollars in what turned out to be as embarrassing as his jump shot. Williams recruited other NBA players by offering to provide them with false invoices that supported their own fraudulent claims. Williams got these invoices from the doctors he'd recruited and then had the players submit the fake claims to the NBA insurance plan. He also recruited non-medical professionals to copy the invoices made by medical offices. The FBI investigator said that these invoices were usually poorly done. They often had typos, had no letterhead, and often contained misspelled names. Despite the unsophisticated nature of the scheme, Williams earned about $300,000. Aside from creating fake invoices, Williams was a true Renaissance man that also dabbled in identity theft. He used an email account designed to impersonate an employee of the NBA health insurance plan to frighten a doctor who wanted to back out of the scheme. Williams threatened the doctor by saying to either pay a fine or he would tell the authorities about the false invoices and claims, allowing Williams to net over $346,000. Williams' scam couldn't carry on forever, though, since he'd made so many mistakes that his arrest was inevitable. The invoices submitted were obviously fake, and some of the participants in the crime had made obvious slip-ups, like billing the NBA from states the teams didn't visit. Even after the scheme went bust and Williams was caught, he still went about threatening witnesses. Williams texted threats to a witness and told them that they were talking too much and that horrible things could befall them if they continued speaking. In the end, Williams pled guilty to 1 count of conspiracy to commit healthcare and wire fraud. The crimes he was charged with carry a maximum term of about 20 years in prison. Williams was also charged with 1 count of aggravated identity theft, which carries a mandatory minimum sentence of 2 years in prison. As part of his guilty plea, he agreed to pay a restitution of $2.5 million to the plan and to forfeit roughly $650,000 to the U.S. government. Number 2. Buy high, sell low. Michael Melchizedek's operation started way back in 2013 when he just founded his company called ZetaKicks. The company found quick success and was soon a popular online plug for sneakerheads, people who collect and trade rare or exclusive sneakers. These sneakers are usually quite expensive and often run into thousands and thousands of dollars. It's a lucrative gig if you know what you're doing, but Michael Melchizedek thought it'd be more lucrative if he instead was running a nationwide Ponzi-like scheme, defrauding thousands of customers out of about $70 million pretending to sell shoes. Not long after its inception, ZetaKicks became a ridiculously successful company, making Michael Melchizedek a very rich man. But in early 2020, things started to get a bit complicated. During that time, ZetaKicks repeatedly promised its customers access to exclusive shoes that were yet to be on the market, and oftentimes promised them at lower than retail prices. These sneakers were usually highly sought after and sold out within minutes. Even other retailers wanted to buy from ZetaKicks because they could resell the shoes at a profit. However, ZetaKicks had a catch. Customers could only get these shoes if they paid for pre-orders. Just like that, ZetaKicks started taking payments for pre-orders. The only small problem for Melchizedek, couldn't fulfill the pre-orders, and he knew it when he started taking them. Melchizedek accepted 600,000 pre-orders for Air Jordan 11 Cool Grays and had put the sneakers on sale for about $115 to $200 a pair when Nike was expected to sell them for about $225. The 600,000 orders amounted to about $70 million. These were incredible sales, but the problem was Melchizedek had only 6,000 pairs in his storehouse, leaving a $593,000 deficit. The responsible thing at this point would be to refund his customers, but Michael had never been accused of being responsible and did no such thing. Instead, he offered his customers a combination of gift cards and refunds, allowing him to keep a huge chunk of the pre-order payments. Still, many orders were left without refunds, and even orders that were fulfilled only got to their destinations a year or so later. Aside from owing shoes to customers that didn't get refunded, the gift cards Melchizedek offered them were simply not equivalent to payments they made. So, Michael Melchizedek did what any person would do after they fleeced millions of dollars. He decided to move on with his life. Melchizedek used the money he got from his illegal scheme to purchase luxury items and live a wealthy lifestyle. He posted videos of himself riding around on a $29,000 Louis Vuitton bicycle inside his Oregon mansion and showed off an extremely expensive collection of Ferraris and Gerard Perot watches. He also bought a Bentley, Porsche, Ferrari, Mercedes, Lamborghini, and a McLaren. Aside from all the cars, Melchizedek also purchased expensive furs, bags, and other luxury items for his fiancée, Bethany Mockerman. According to the police, he also used part of the money to finance a house payment with $600,000 worth of remodeling work done. It seemed like there was no way Melchizedek's life could be undone. But the entire scheme was quickly unraveling, and Michael realized that he couldn't keep the scam going for much longer. Melchizedek preempted the bankruptcy of the business by going to the courts and asking for the company to be dissolved and for its assets to be passed on to a court-appointed receiver. This receiver was supposed to use the company's assets to settle all outstanding debts that the company might have incurred. After doing that, Michael deleted his social media accounts and deleted the company's website as well. Following the dissolution of the business, the FBI began investigating the company, and they found some incredible things. They discovered that Michael was in fact selling sneaker pre-orders without actually having those sneakers, and he failed to refund those payments as well. But that was just the tip of the shoe. The FBI also discovered that the company provided false and misleading information to banks when applying for loans, and that his fiancée, Bethany Mockerman, was complicit in the scam. The FBI deemed the entire operation a criminal enterprise and swiftly moved in. Law enforcement agents were able to seize millions of dollars in cash and recovered another $6.4 million from the sale of the watches and cars. They also found out that Michael had 4,700 Yeezys, 8,500 Adidas shoes, and 48,000 Nike shoes in a warehouse in his house. The couple was also arrested to boot, pun intended. According to their attorney, both Michael and Bethany were cooperating with law enforcement. In the end, the FBI decided to charge both Bethany and Michael with conspiracy to commit bank fraud and money laundering. The only shoes we think Michael should wear is, of course, con number 1. We love attention. Johnny Richardson and Micaiah Taylor conspired with a government worker to steal thousands of dollars meant to support individuals who lost their jobs due to the coronavirus pandemic. The government worker involved was Brandy Hawkins, and without her, the scam would have never gone through. Actually, Hawkins was the reason the couple was even caught in the first place, when police discovered the couple through Hawkins' social media. The couple had been showing off their new pandemic-funded lavish lifestyle on social media. In one post, Johnny Richardson bought a $130,000 Benz for Taylor's birthday, proclaiming he'd already bought her a big house and that for some reason she deserved a gratuitously expensive car purchased with stolen funds. Maybe he was mad at her? Like, happy birthday, here's a vehicle that will be used as evidence for your future incarceration. I posted it on social media to make it easier to find. Happy B-Day, love you, XOXO. The couple continued to flaunt their extravagant lifestyles, even though neither of them had enough money to be living so lavishly. In fact, one of Taylor's confusing pictures, she was in a bikini, soaking in a bathtub filled with milk water, surrounded by dead rose petals. She must think that the wealthy take baths in dirty water with detritus floating around in it while wearing bathing suits. They also posted pictures of themselves wearing extremely expensive jewelry, driving other luxury vehicles, and flaunting large amounts of government cash. Police discovered Taylor and Richardson's social media brags when Hawkins was investigated for using her insider access to grant hundreds of thousands in fraudulent and unemployment claims. When the police discovered Hawkins' scam, they searched her home and discovered over $238,000 in cash, as well as receipts for Louis Vuitton merchandise and other high-end luxury items. Once police got access to Hawkins' phone records, they found incriminating conversations between her and other thieves. One of the phone numbers that Hawkins regularly texted was linked to one MDMH beauty bar. Officials looked at the page and discovered that it belonged to Taylor. Once the police found Taylor's Instagram page and saw how lavishly she and her boyfriend lived, they knew that something was up and decided to investigate. Upon further investigation, they discovered that Taylor, Richardson, and Hawkins regularly spoke about getting these fraudulent unemployment benefits and that they were all in cahoots. There was a lot of cahooting between the three. After going through Taylor and Richardson's Instagram accounts, the police decided that there was enough cause to arrest the couple. However, Richardson got word before he could be arrested and skedaddled out of town. Taylor wasn't so lucky. She was arrested and charged with wire fraud. If convicted, she could spend up to 20 years in prison for the crime. When Taylor eventually appeared in the court, she was wearing one of the luxury items she took pictures with on Instagram. Instead, she was in handcuffs and a blue zip-up jacket. Her lawyer requested bail, but the prosecutor was pretty adamant she remain in custody. He argued that the police still didn't know where the majority of their loot was, was and didn't know where boyfriend of the year Richardson ran off to. This, the government argued, made Taylor a flight risk. The judge ignored prosecution's recommendation and released her on a $10,000 unsecured bond. Ultimately, Richardson was caught and made to face justice as well. The couple both pled guilty to conspiracy to commit wire fraud and conspiracy to commit money laundering. Richardson was eventually sentenced to 97 months in prison, and Taylor was sentenced to 30 months in prison. Click to watch one of these next videos. Let us know in the comments section what you think is the biggest scam going on in society today.